Inter pushed Acerbi higher during deep build-up. The centre-backs and centre midfielders provided short passing options and the wing-backs the width. Inter preferred to entice Calabria into pressing, which created a space for the wide centre midfielders or forwards to run into and create transitional play, ultimately leading to a cross with the hope that the other forward and Dumfries would be able to attack it. Inter's midfield possession was rare, given the desire for transitional play. The space for the counter-attack was there late in the second half for the likes of Lautaro and Lukaku, as Milan threw their fullbacks higher and had Leao central too. During midfield build-up, one Inter centre-forward is involved in deeper build-up play, with the wide centre midfielders and the wing-backs providing thrust in the wide areas to contest or create crosses. Also, Bastoni and Dumfries provided long throw-ins. Milan's deep build-up was rarely contested, and whilst Milan's midfield struggled to build up despite Leao and Diaz constantly dropping, partially due to the centre-forwards dropping, Giroud provided a long ball option, but also a focal point, and the full-backs tried to creep up the pitch to try and combine with their wide midfielders at overlap, as well as help counter-press when they lost possession. Before we get into the examples, if you enjoyed the video, consider hitting the like button, sharing on social media, and subscribing. And with that, let's get into it. So I wanted to start in the 48th minute. At this point, Mkhitaryan has been replaced by Brozovic, who's playing the anchor role, with Çalhanoğlu pushing out to that left centre midfield position. At this point, Milan are able to force Inter into retreating to Onana. We get to see part of the Milan press, and more importantly, we get to see that 2-1 deep build-up. We've got Darmian pushing out into right centre-back, and then we're going to get Brozovic, left centre-back, with Acerbi stepping out. So he's going to play the CDM as he did during Inter deep build-up, and we see him utilised here by a Brozovic first-time pass, which allows Inter to quite easily get back up the pitch again and set up into their midfield shape, where, as mentioned, they're going to look to utilise the wing-back holding the width and get those wide centre midfielders to try and exploit those channels that are freed up by the full-backs for Milan being aggressive. Before that, we do get to see of that 4-2-1-3 press. So we've got centre midfielders, we've got Brahim Diaz and the forwards trying to put some pressure into Milan here, with Acerbi still here in the CDM role, and we're going to start to see Inter push out towards this left-hand side channel. You see that with Barella's movement, as well as also we're going to see that with Çalhanoğlu's. Okay, so we see Çalhanoğlu taking advantage of Macias's blind spot, Barella pulling Tonali towards this left-hand side, Calabria having to pull quite wide from the rest of his defensive line to try and put pressure on Di Marco as soon as possible, as well as the space that we've mentioned that Inter are going to look to exploit, and the fact that as all this goes on, Dumfries is slowly creeping his way towards this back post, so he'll be able to contest across to. Unfortunately, Di Marco's ball down the line is inaccurate and it goes out of play, but we can see the runs by the two wide centre midfielders looking to exploit that space that I mentioned earlier. And then another string in Inter's attacking bow were their long throw-ins using Bastoni or Dumfries, looking for obvious targets such as Dzeko. This was a nice scenario because not only does it show the long throw-in, but then we also get to see the near-sided centre forward, in this case Dzeko, coming across to help in the build-up play, whilst the other centre forward and Dumfries stay central to contest the cross. And so we see as the play develops, Dzeko combined with Mkhitaryan here, who then looks to try and cross it from this side to the forwards, as well as also Barella looking to make that late run in case the initial ball is defended. But unfortunately for Milan, the cross is blocked. Next, we look at Milan's 2-3 build-up versus what was typically a 5-3-2 by Inter Milan. So whilst I say that Inter typically allowed Milan to kind of just progress from deep, they did try on occasion to engage in Milan's half, where they could have the wide centre midfielders and the wing-backs track their players. So the likes of Barella and Mkhitaryan would try and track Tonali and Brahim Diaz when they dropped to try and link play, whilst Dumfries and Di Marco would track Macias and Rafael Leao dropping, making it quite difficult at times for Milan to be able to progress in those spaces. But they were also happy, as I said, to drop and just kind of allow Milan to push up higher to ultimately create space for the likes of Lautaro to exploit. And so we see some of that here with Çalhanoğlu having pushed out towards Calabria on this left-hand side, whilst Di Marco stays with Macias. Macias, who did really like this run from outside to in, looking to utilise the fact that Brahim Diaz's positioning could draw Inter players away from this space, creating more opportunity for him to drive inside. And then he really fancied those chips towards the back post, but they were often overhit, and none of his teammates were anticipating them. Alternatively, he can also and did play the ball inside to the likes of Giroud and then also Leao as the game progressed, who initially did start off a bit wider with Tonali playing more inside, but as the game progressed he started to pull inside a lot more to try and create from these central spaces, as we see here with him eventually dribbling towards the right hand side and being defended here by Acerbi. Next, in the 70th minute, we see somewhat of a wild Inter Milan clearance, which is initially defended here, but Çalhanoğlu cushions a really nice pass into Barella, but he's not able to then connect with Lautaro, so Inter Milan potential counter-attack here immediately breaks down, and Kalulu instead sets Calabria off in that right hand side channel, where we again get to see those shapes that we saw a few minutes earlier, where Rafael Leao is starting to try and come inside again, Giroud's looking to occupy the centre back, and Brahim Diaz is looking to try and get into that right hand side half space. Calabria overlap his wide midfielder on this occasion, but he doesn't do so with any urgency, so even when Macias looks to combine here with Brahim Diaz, Calabria is not really an option because he's too close to Brozovic at this point. Anyway, we also get to see Leao coming inside again, which invites Tonali to take up his left wing position instead. So we see Calabria receive the ball eventually on this right hand side, but due to the lack of urgency, Inter are able to stifle this and Milan play inside to Rafael Leao, who's immediately accosted and forced back. And then when he tries to do a little bit of trickery and draw the Inter Milan defense out to create space for him to be able to combine, this is eventually blocked here by Brozovic, and from there Lukaku is able to pounce on the loose ball and start a counter-attack, but Tomori is able to press and kind of push Lukaku towards Milan's left hand side, which allows Theo Hernandez to be able to help him, and Milan are able to get the ball back. This is somewhat decent example also of the counter press that Milan try to utilize, where we have the aggressive positioning of the centre back here to immediately confront the attacker. With that, thanks for watching. If you enjoy the content, consider sharing it on social media, subscribing, and with that, we're out.